Monica, a seasoned trauma nurse, steps into the roadside diner, her feet aching from a brutal 16-hour shift. She is exhausted, but she knows she needs to eat before heading home. The place is dimly lit, the scent of coffee and fried food hanging heavy in the air. She glances around and notices a group of bikers occupying the largest booth in the corner, their leather jackets adorned with skull patches, their voices loud and boisterous. They look at her as soon as she enters their stares, lingering a second too long. She ignores them, moving to the counter and sliding onto a stool. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, gives her a sympathetic smile. "What can I get you, hon?" Monica exhales, rubbing her temples. "Just coffee for now, black." The waitress nods and moves to pour her a cup. As Monica waits, she can hear the bikers' laughter, their voices carrying across the nearly empty diner. One of them says something in a hushed tone, and the others chuckle low and mean. She can feel it now, the shift in energy, the weight of their attention settling on her like an unwelcome hand on her shoulder. She has spent years in emergency rooms, dealing with chaos, disrespect, and outright danger. But this is different. This is not the frantic urgency of a hospital. This is slow, intentional provocation. She keeps her eyes forward, fingers tapping lightly on the counter. One of the bikers stands up, his boots heavy against the floor. As he approaches her, well, he drawls, resting an elbow on the counter beside her. "Never seen you around here before." Monica does not turn to look at him, just lifts her coffee cup to her lips and takes a slow sip. Her silence does not deter him. If anything, it fuels him, makes him more eager to push. She can hear his grin in his voice. "You lost or something, lady?" She sets her cup down carefully, as if measuring her response. "No, just tired." He laughs low and mocking. "Tough shift, huh?" His buddies snicker from the booth, their amusement thick in the air. Monica remains still, her pulse steady. She has been in worse situations than this. Patched up gunshot wounds, calmed down violent patients, held hands of the dying. This man is just another test of patience. But then he makes a mistake. He reaches out and flicks the edge of her coffee cup, causing it to slosh over the rim. The dark liquid spreads across the counter, steaming. Monica finally turns her head, meeting his gaze, her expression unreadable. The waitress hesitates, watching, frozen in place. The biker grins, expecting anger, fear, maybe even retreat. But Monica simply picks up a napkin, dabbing at the spill as if his attempt to rattle her was nothing more than an inconvenience. The lack of reaction seems to annoy him. He leans in closer, lowering his voice. "You know, respect goes a long way around here. Might wanna learn some." She tilts her head slightly, the corners of her lips barely lifting in something that is not quite a smile. "And what exactly do you think I should learn from you?" Her tone is calm, steady, but there is something in her eyes, something that makes his grin falter for just a fraction of a second. One of his friends calls out from the booth, "Careful, boss, she might put you in your place." The laughter erupts again, louder this time, but Monica does not look away, does not blink. She studies the man in front of her, his stance, his breathing, the slight tension in his shoulders. He is not used to being challenged, not like this, not by someone like her. She lets the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. Then she speaks, her voice even and cool. "You got a name, or do I just call you Bad Decision Number One?" His jaw tightens, the amusement in his eyes dimming slightly. The waitress lets out a choked laugh, quickly turning away to busy herself with the coffee pot. The biker straightens, as if trying to reclaim whatever control he thought he had over the situation. But Monica is already turning back to her coffee, sipping it, as if he is no longer worth her attention. Outside, a gust of wind rattles the diner's windows. The night is still and heavy, but inside something has shifted. Monica has seen this before, the fragile ego of a man whose bluff has been called, the moment where words are no longer enough. She knows what comes next, and she is ready. The biker watches Monica for a long moment, his smirk twitching at the edges as if he is deciding whether to laugh it off or push further. His friends are waiting, eyes locked on him, waiting for his next move, waiting to see if their leader will let a woman shut him down without consequence. The silence stretches thick with unspoken challenge. Finally, he chuckles low and slow, shaking his head. "You got a sharp tongue for someone sitting alone," he says, his voice still laced with amusement. But now there is something else in it, something harder. You sure you know who you're talking to? Monica does not flinch, does not break her slow, measured sip of coffee. When she sets the cup down, she exhales like she has just finished a long shift dealing with a difficult patient, and in a way she has. I know exactly who I'm talking to, she says, finally looking at him with a gaze that is steady and unreadable, and I'm not impressed. The other bikers laugh at that. One of them slaps the table hard enough to rattle the plates. The leader straightens, clearly not used to this kind of response from anyone, let alone someone he assumed would be an easy target. He leans in closer, his breath thick with whiskey and bravado. You think you're tough? Huh, he murmurs. You think you can just walk in here and talk to me like that? Monica tilts her head, studying him like he's a puzzle missing half its pieces. I don't think I know. The laughter around the diner grows, the bikers chuckling, nudging each other, clearly entertained by the idea of their leader getting talked down to by a woman in scrubs. But Monica is not here to entertain, she is here to eat and go home. And if this man does not step away soon, he is going to learn exactly how tough she is. The leader shifts his weight, planting both hands on the counter now. He's not laughing anymore. Listen, lady, he says low and sharp, I don't take disrespect lightly. Monica exhales through her nose, shakes her head like she can't believe how predictable this is. Disrespect? She echoes like she's testing the word on her tongue. You call what I'm doing disrespect? That's interesting, because I call what you're doing a very bad idea. The tension in the room thickens. The waitress hesitates near the register, torn between wanting to intervene and knowing it won't do any good. The few other customers still in the diner pretend not to watch, but they are all listening. They all feel the shift. One of the younger bikers grins, nudging his friend. Boss, you gonna let her talk to you like that? She's got you looking real soft right now. The leader stiffens, his jaw locking. He has two choices: walk away and lose face, or do something reckless. Monica already knows which one he will pick. He reaches out fast, aiming to grab her wrist, maybe to yank her up, maybe just to prove a point, maybe just to remind her who he thinks is in charge. But Monica has been working in trauma for years. She has dodged flailing arms from patients in the throes of pain. She has been trained for de escalation, but she has also been trained for self defense, so she moves just as fast, if not faster. Before he can even close his fingers around her wrist, she pivots, twisting her arm away in one smooth motion, her other hand already moving. Before she even thinks about it, she presses two fingers to the inside of his elbow, pushing down on the nerve cluster there with just the right amount of force. His arm locks up, his breath catches in his throat, his knees buckle just slightly enough for him to realize something is very, very wrong. His buddies are still laughing, but now it's nervous, unsure, watching their leader struggle to move his own arm. Monica does not raise her voice, does not make a show of it. She just leans slightly toward him, her voice quiet. And even I work in a hospital, she murmurs. I know exactly how the human body works. I know how to stop it from working too now. I suggest you back up before you make this any worse for yourself. The leader swallows, hard sweat breaking out on his forehead. His pride is screaming at him to push back, but his body is already telling him he won't win this. She lets go, and immediately he jerks a leg, cradling his arm. His expression is furious, but underneath the anger there is something else, something close to fear. Monica picks up her coffee again, sipping it as if nothing happened, as if she has not just sent a message to every single person in that diner. She sets the cup down, slowly looks him in the eye. Now, are we done here, or do you need a refresher? The diner is silent, the weight of Monica's words hanging in the air like a storm about to break. The leader of the bikers, still cradling his arm, glares at her, his pride in shambles. His friends watch him, waiting to see what he will do. But he knows what they expect. They want him to strike back, to take control of the situation, to remind everyone in the room that he is not to be messed with. Monica meets his glare with the same calm, steady expression she has used on violent patients, on grieving families, on men who think intimidation is power. She does not flinch, she does not look away. The leader grits his teeth, rolling his shoulder, testing to see if the tingling sensation in his arm has faded. It hasn't, not completely. You got some nerve, lady, he mutters, trying to save face, his voice lower now edged with something he does not want to admit. Monica just exhales, shaking her head, slightly more tired than angry. You reached for me, she says flatly. What did you think was going to happen? The younger bikers shift in their seats, some of them still trying to suppress smirks, others glancing toward the door, debating if it's time to leave. One of them, a tall guy with a snake tattoo winding up his neck, finally speaks up. Maybe she's got a point, boss. Maybe we should just let it go. The leader turns sharply, shooting him a glare, but his grip on control is already slipping. Monica sees it. So does everyone else. The power dynamic in the room has shifted, whether he wants to admit it or not. The moment he reached for her and failed to follow through, he lost. And there is nothing worse for a man like him than losing in front of an audience. He straightens, squaring his shoulders, trying to reclaim some ground. Fine, he says gruffly, his voice carrying through the diner. You got lucky tonight. Monica actually laughs, soft and brief, but unmistakable. Lucky, she repeats, shaking her head. Buddy, if you think that was luck, then you really don't know what you're dealing with. The bikers exchange glances, some amused, some nervous. The leader clenches his jaw, turning toward the exit, signaling for his crew to follow him, but Monica is not done yet. Wait, she calls out, stopping them in their tracks. The leader stiffens his back, still to her, his hands curl into fists, as if he's preparing for another humiliation. But Monica's voice, when she speaks next, is level, measured. Before you walk out of here, I want you to think about something. She says you act like you're the toughest guy in the room. But the moment you got tested, you folded. If you're gonna play the big bad wolf, at least learn how to keep your house from blowing over in a breeze. A few of the younger bikers chuckle outright, not even trying to hide it anymore. The leader exhales sharply, then, without another word, he storms toward the door, shoving it open so hard the bell above it nearly snaps off. His crew follows, some shaking their heads, some laughing among themselves. A few shoot Monica an impressed glance before disappearing into the night. The door swings shut, the cold wind rushing in for just a second before the diner settles again, a strange mix of tension and relief filling the air. The waitress, still clutching a coffee pot, lets out a long breath. Jesus, lady, she mutters, that was insane. Monica shrugs, picking up her coffee cup again. Just another night. The old man at the counter, who had been watching the whole thing, chuckles, shaking his head with admiration in his eyes. Well, I'll be damned. He says those guys been coming in here for months, running their mouths, scaring folks, taking what they want without paying. First time I ever seen someone put 'em in their place. Monica does respond, just lifts her coffee to her lips, taking a slow sip, as if she has all the time in the world. The waitress rushes over, offering her a free meal. As thanks, Monica considers it for a moment, then shakes her head. Nah, just bring me some toast and eggs, I got work in the morning. The waitress grins, nodding right away. As Monica waits for her food, she glances outside through the diner window. The bikes are still there, engines idling, but the men are quieter now, less sure of themselves. She watches them for a moment, then looks away, uninterested in whatever lesson they choose to take from tonight. She has done her part. When her plate arrives, she digs in with quiet satisfaction. Across the room, a few of the other diners murmur to each other, sending her quick glances before turning back to their meals. The fear that had lingered in the air before is gone, replaced with something else, something like respect. Monica does not need their admiration. She does not need a thank you. She just needed a quiet meal. But if she had to serve a lesson alongside it, well, that was just a bonus. The diner slowly returns to normal. Conversations pick back up, plates clatter against the counter, the sizzle of bacon and eggs fills the air. But there is still something different, something lingering, a shift that everyone feels. Monica eats her food with calm efficiency, not in a rush, but not wasting time either. She has spent years working under pressure, knowing that every moment counts, and right now, her only concern is finishing her meal and going home. The waitress moves around the counter, stealing quick glances at Monica. Finally, curiosity gets the best of her, and she leans in, voice low, so the other customers don't hear. Where the hell did you learn to do that? Monica glances up from her plate, swallows her bite of toast, and takes a sip of coffee before answering. Hospitals, she says simply, trauma wards, emergency rooms, psych units. You learn fast, or you get hurt. The waitress blinks like she wasn't expecting that kind of answer. Well, damn, she mutters, shaking her head. I figured maybe military or self defense classes or something. Monica shrugs, chewing another bite. Not much difference in some ways. A guy with a broken bottle in a psych ward isn't all that different from a biker with too much pride and not enough common sense. The old man at the counter, who had been watching everything, lets out a chuckle, taking a slow sip of his own coffee. You ever think about law enforcement, young lady? You got the guts for it. Monica shakes her head. No thanks, I spend enough time patching people up after they make bad choices. I don't need to be part of the process that gets them there. The waitress laughs at that, nodding. Fair enough, honey, fair enough. Outside, the rumble of motorcycle engines grows louder. Monica doesn't bother looking up. She already knows the bikers are still out there debating their next move, trying to decide whether to let this go or come back inside for another round. It doesn't matter to her. If they do, they'll walk away with more than just bruised egos. But then something unexpected happens. The diner door swings open again. But it's not the leader that steps inside, it's the younger biker, the one with the snake tattoo on his neck. He moves carefully, scanning the room like he expects someone to throw something at him. When his eyes land on Monica, he exhales, straightens, and walks toward her. Monica doesn't stop eating. She doesn't move at all, just watches him as he approaches. The other customers quiet down, waiting to see what happens next. The waitress stiffens near the coffee pot, ready to call for help if she needs to, but Monica just lifts an eyebrow, waiting. The biker stops a few feet away, hesitates, then rubs the back of his neck, looking down for a moment before finally speaking. That was something back there. Monica takes another sip of coffee, and then he exhales, shifting his weight, looking uncomfortable as hell, but pushing forward anyway. I just wanted to say that was badass. I mean, we usually don't get put in our place like that. It was kinda embarrassing, but also kinda deserved. The waitress stares at him like she can't believe what she's hearing. A biker actually admitting he was wrong. Monica studies him for a moment, then nods. I figured you were the smart one. The biker chuckles, shaking his head. Maybe, but not smart enough to keep my mouth shut back there. He hesitates again, then adds, listen, I don't think we'll be coming back here, at least not like that. The boss, well, he's pissed. But he's also not stupid. We know when we've lost. Monica doesn't respond, just gives him a small nod of acknowledgement. The biker stands there for another second, then awkwardly clears his throat. Well, I'll have a good night, I guess. He turns and walks out, the door swinging shut behind him. The engines roar to life, and then one by one the bikes pull away, disappearing into the night. The diner is silent for a long moment before the old man at the counter lets out a low whistle. Well, I'll be damned, never thought I'd see the day. The waitress shakes her head, laughing softly. That was the weirdest apology I've ever heard. Monica finally allows herself a small smirk, taking one last sip of coffee before setting the cup down. Life's full of surprises. The hum of the motorcycles fades into the distance. The diner settles back into a familiar rhythm, but the air still holds the weight of what just happened. Monica finishes the last bite of her toast, wipes her fingers on a napkin, and leans back, slightly savoring the moment. She knows she should probably feel more rattled, more shaken by the confrontation, but she doesn't. She feels steady, calm, in control, just like she always does when the storm passes. The waitress, still shaking her head, refills Monica's coffee, her hands moving with practiced ease, but her eyes are still wide with something between disbelief and admiration. You know, honey, I've been working here for 15 years, seen all kinds of people come through that door, but I ain't never seen anyone shut down a whole biker gang with nothing but words and a pressure point. Monica gives a small shrug. Just another night. The old man at the counter chuckles, shaking his head. Not for most folks it ain't. Monica doesn't argue. She knows most people would have handled it differently, maybe tried to appease the bikers, or ignored them, or worse, let them push too far. But that's not who she is. She's never been the type to back down when something is wrong. She spent too many years in trauma wards, holding her ground against chaos. She's not about to let some overgrown schoolyard bullies change that. The waitress leans against the counter, lowering her voice a bit. Not that I'm complaining or anything, But you should probably watch yourself. Those guys don't usually take embarrassment lightly. Monica meets her guests steady, unbothered. If they come back, they'll leave with another lesson. The waitress studies her for a moment, then lets out a breath like she's not sure whether to be impressed or worried. Well, I don't doubt that, she says, but still just be careful. Monica nods, appreciating the concern, but she's already moved on in her mind. She glances at the clock size, then signals for the check. I gotta be up early. The waitress waves her off. Don't worry about it. This one's of the house. Consider it a thank you for keeping this place in one piece. Monica hesitates for half a second, then nods her thanks. She's not the kind of person who takes handouts, but this doesn't feel like charity. It feels like respect, earned, the kind of respect that isn't given lightly. She stands up, stretching her stiff muscles. Before grabbing her coat, the old man at the counter watches her with an amused smile. You ever get tired of fixing people up? You ought to think about teaching him a lesson or two instead. Monica smirks. Already do, in my own way. He laughs, nodding. Fair enough. Monica pulls on her coat and steps toward the door, the cold night air slipping through the cracks. She pauses for just a second, glancing back at the diner, the faces of the people inside, grateful, amused, a little awestruck. She doesn't need the recognition, but she understands it. People like those bikers have been pushing folks around for years unchecked. Tonight was different. Tonight, the balance shifted. She pushes open the door, stepping out into the crisp air, her breath visible in the glow of the street lights. Her car is parked a few spaces away, the street mostly empty, the quiet hum of the small town settling back into place. As she moves toward her car, she glances toward the dark stretch of road where the bikers disappeared. Something tells her this isn't the last she'll see of them. She doesn't know how or when, but she knows men like their leader don't take humiliation lightly. She exhales, shaking her head as she unlocks the car and slides into the driver's seat, her hands steady on the wheel. If they come back, she'll be ready. Monica drives through the quiet streets, the glow of the streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. The night feels still, but she knows better. Tension like this doesn't just disappear, it lingers, waiting for the right moment to resurface. She keeps one hand on the wheel, the other drumming lightly against her thigh, her mind already shifting gears, back to work, back to the patients she'll be seeing in just a few hours. As she pulls up to her apartment complex, she scans the parking lot out of habit, making sure nothing feels off. Her instincts have been honed by years in the hospital, working late shifts, walking to her car alone at night, knowing that danger isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, waiting in the places people least expect. She steps out of her car, locking the door behind her, her breath visible in the cold air. Her footsteps echo against the pavement as she heads toward her building. She reaches her door, unlocks, steps inside, and exhales, rolling the tension from her shoulders. Inside, the apartment is small but neat, everything in its place. The scent of lavender from the candle she left burning earlier still lingers. She tosses her keys onto the counter, kicks off her shoes, and heads straight for the shower, letting the hot water wash away the exhaustion of the night. As she stands there, steam curling around her, she thinks about the bikers, about their leader, about the look in his eyes when he realized he wasn't in control anymore. She has seen that look before in men who let their pride write checks their bodies couldn't cash. She knows it won't be over, not really. By the time she steps out of the shower, wraps herself in a towel, and checks her phone, is past midnight. A few unread messages from coworkers, a notification about her next shift. Nothing out of the ordinary, but still something nags at her, an instinct, a feeling. She walks to the window, pulling the curtain back just slightly and scanning the parking lot below. It's mostly empty, a few cars parked here and there, but nothing suspicious. Still she lingers, watching, waiting. But after a few minutes, she forces herself to let it go. She has work in the morning, and she refuses to let a bunch of overgrown bullies take up any more space in her head. She climbs into bed, pulling the blankets up around her shoulders, her body exhausted, but her mind still wide, still alert. But eventually the warmth and the steady rhythm of her own breathing pull her under into sleep. It isn't until hours later, when she's deep in a dreamless rest, that she hears it, the low distant growl of motorcycle engines rolling into the parking lot. The distant rumble of motorcycle engines pulls Monica from sleep, her eyes snapping open as her body tenses. Listening, the sound is unmistakable, low, steady, vibrating through the air. Even from inside her apartment, she knows exactly who it is. She shifts out of bed, quietly moving to the window, careful not to let the curtain shift too much. She peers down into the dimly lit parking lot, and there they are, three bikes lined up near the entrance, engines idling, their riders sitting still, watching, waiting. Her jaw tightens. She isn't surprised, not really. She knew their leader wouldn't let it go. Men like him never do. But she also knows they aren't here just to make noise. They want her to know they're watching. They want her to feel unsettled, to feel like she made a mistake standing up to them. Except she doesn't feel scared, she feels annoyed. She turns away from the window, running a hand through her hair. She could call the police, but what would she even say? A group of bikers are sitting in the parking lot, not technically doing anything. She already knows how that would go. Slow response time, maybe a patrol car rolling by, only for them to disappear before anything could happen. Then they'd just come back later. No, if they wanted to send a message, then she'd send one back. She grabs a hoodie, slipping it on over her tank top, pulls on a pair of sweatpants, and slides her feet into sneakers. Before heading toward the door, she moves without hesitation, unlocking it and stepping outside, the cold night air wrapping around her as she makes her way down the stairs. The bikers notice her immediately. The engines go quiet as she approaches, all three of them watching her. Their leader is there, of course, standing beside his bike, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Monica stops a few feet away, hands in her pockets, her stance relaxed, but her eyes sharp. "You lost?" she asks, voice calm even. The leader lets out a slow chuckle, shaking his head. "Not just enjoying the night, nice quiet spot here, figured we'd take in the view." She tilts her head. "That's so, because from where I'm standing looks a lot like you're trying to scare me." His smirk widens now. "Why would we do that, lady? We're just out for a ride." She exhales through her nose, shaking her head. "You really don't get it, do you?" She steps closer, closing the distance between them slightly. His friends shift, slightly uncertain, but he stays still, watching her. "Get what?" he asks, amusement still in his voice. "But there's something else there now, something guarded." "That you already lost," she says simply, her voice never rising, never wavering. "You walked into that diner thinking you owned the place. You walked out realizing you didn't. And now you're here trying to prove something, but all you're proving is that you can't handle the fact that someone stood up to you." His jaw tightens just slightly, his fingers flexing at his sides. His pride is aching, she can see it, feel it. "Lady," he starts, voice lower now, but she cuts him off with a sharp shake of her head. "No, don't lady me. You had your chance back there in the diner, and you blew it. Now you're here, hoping what? That I'd be scared, that I'd back down." She takes another step forward now. She's standing just a foot away, looking up at him, unwavering. "Let me tell you what's gonna happen. You're gonna get back on those bikes and ride away. You're not gonna come back here. You're not gonna wait outside my job. You're not gonna pull this little intimidation act again. Because if you do, I promise you, whatever ego bruise you're feeling now will be nothing compared to what comes next." His friends exchange glances, unsure. The leader's smirk has faded now, his expression unreadable. Monica holds his gaze, waiting, daring him to make a move. Finally he exhales, shaking his head. "Damn, lady, you really don't quit, do you?" "Not when I'm right," she replies simply. He studies her for a long moment, then lets out a dry chuckle, shaking his head before turning back to his bike. His movements slow, deliberate. He swings one leg over the seat, gripping the handlebars without looking at her. Then without a word, he starts the engine. His friends do the same, the growl of their bikes filling the air again. Monica doesn't move, doesn't turn away as they pull out of the lot, riding off into the night, disappearing into the darkness. She stands there for a moment, letting the silence settle before finally exhaling, turning on her heel and heading back up the stairs. She steps inside, locking the door behind her, pressing her back against it for just a second. Then she pushes off, moves to the kitchen, pours herself a glass of water, and takes a slow sip. They might come back, they might not, but either way she is ready. The night stretches on quiet and still, but Monica knows better. Just because the bikers left doesn't mean it's over. Men like their leader don't just walk away with their tails between their legs and let it go. They sit on it, stew in it, let it fester until they feel like they have no choice but to act again. She's seen it in hospital beds where men lay with broken ribs, muttering about getting even. She's seen it in waiting rooms where families glare at each other over old grudges. She finishes her water, setting the glass in the sink. Before heading back to bed, she lays down, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint sounds of the city outside, the occasional car passing, the distant hum of life moving on. She wonders if the bikers are out there somewhere, still debating their next moves, still nursing their bruised egos. Her body is tired, but her mind won't let go. It replays everything from the diner to the parking lot, the way their leader looked at her when he realized she wasn't afraid, the way his friends hesitated, unsure whether to follow him or think for themselves. Monica closes her eyes, forces her breathing to slow, forces her body to relax. She's dealt with worse, she tells herself, and it's true. She's been in rooms where the air is thick with blood and fear, where she's had to make decisions in seconds that meant the difference between life and death. A few angry bikers are nothing compared to that. Eventually, sleep takes her, but it's light, restless, and when her alarm goes off, she's already half awake. She gets up, stretching, rolling the tension from her shoulders. The sun is just beginning to rise, casting a soft glow through the blinds. She moves through her morning routine, showering, dressing, pulling her hair back into a tight ponytail. As she steps outside, locking the door behind her, she scans the parking lot, her eyes sharp. But nothing seems out of place. The bikers are gone, no sign they were ever there, but still she stays alert. She drives to work, her mind already shifting gears. As she walks into the hospital, the scent of antiseptic and coffee filling the air, the controlled chaos of the morning rush already in motion. She moves through it with ease, checking charts, prepping for rounds, slipping into the rhythm of her job. Hours pass, patients come and go, some with minor injuries, some with wounds that tell stories they don't want to share. She treats them all with the same steady hands, the same calm voice, but beneath it all there's a part of her that stays watchful, waiting. Then just after noon, as she's finishing up with a patient, she feels it, a shift, a presence. Her instincts prickle, and when she looks up, she sees him standing near the entrance. The biker leader. He's not in his leather jacket this time, just a plain black t-shirt and jeans, his arms crossed, his stance casual, but she knows better. He's not here by accident. Their eyes meet across the room. She doesn't flinch, doesn't react, just watches as he hesitates. For the first time since she's met him, he actually looks unsure. Then slowly he moves toward her, weaving through the busy corridor, stopping a few feet away. Nurses and doctors move around them, but in that moment, it feels like the world has narrowed to just the two of them. He exhales, running a hand through his hair before finally speaking. "Look, Aya." Monica raises an eyebrow, waiting. He shifts his weight, glancing around like he doesn't want anyone to hear. Then he sighs, "Fine, I was a jackass. You didn't deserve that back at the diner." Monica blinks, not expecting that whatever she thought he'd come here to do, an apology, wasn't on the list. She studies him for a moment before responding, "No, you were a jackass, but go on." He smirks just slightly, but it fades quick. He clears his throat, shaking his head. "Look, I don't know what it is about you, but you don't scare easy. And I guess that's why I'm here." He hesitates, then sighs again, rubbing the back of his neck. "My little brother got banged up in a fight last night, nothing serious, but he's too stubborn to come in himself. Thought maybe you could take a look." Monica crosses her arms. "So now you want my help?" He nods. "Yeah, I guess I do." She exhales, glancing toward the busy hallway, then back at him. "Fine, bring him in. But if you or any of your guys pull anything, I swear you'll walk out of here in worse shape than when you came in." His lips twitch like he's fighting a smile. "Wouldn't expect anything less." He turns, heading toward the door, pulling out his phone, presumably to make the call. Monica watches him, who's shaking her head, wondering just what she's getting herself into. Monica exhales, shaking her head, as she watches the biker leader walk away, disappearing through the sliding hospital doors. She doesn't know why she agreed to help. Maybe It's the part of her that took an oath to heal. Maybe it's curiosity, maybe it's the feeling that this is bigger than just some petty diner fight. Whatever the reason, she knows she's about to step into something messy. She finishes up her current round, checks in with the nurses, makes sure everything is running smoothly, then steps into the break room for a moment of quiet. She leans against the counter, sipping lukewarm coffee, her mind running through every possible way this could go wrong. 20 minutes later, she gets paged to the front desk. When she walks out, she sees them, the leader standing off to the side, arms crossed, face unreadable. Next to him is a younger guy, maybe 19 or 20, tall, lanky, with bruises blooming across his cheekbone and a split lip, dried blood at the corner of his mouth. The younger biker shifts, uncomfortable as Monica approaches. His eyes flick to his brother, then back to her, like he's not sure what to expect. Monica stops in front of them, arms crossed, her gaze sharp. So this must be the little brother. The younger one huffs, not that little. Monica raises an eyebrow. Half she looks at the injuries, assessing quickly. Nothing life-threatening, but definitely painful. She jerks her head toward an exam room. Follow me. The younger biker hesitates, but the leader nudges him forward with a grunt. Don't make her say it twice. Monica leads them into the room, flipping on the overhead light and gesturing for the younger one to sit at the exam table. He does so stiffly, arms crossed, like he's trying to act tough. Monica just sighs, grabbing gloves and a disinfectant wipe. This is gonna sting, she warns before dabbing at his split lip. He hisses, jerking back. But she grabs his chin, firm but not rough. Stop moving unless you want this to take longer. He grumbles something under his breath, but holds still, letting her clean the wound. She moves efficiently, checking for signs of a concussion, feeling along his ribs for fractures. Nothing serious, mostly bruises and a whole lot of bad decisions. So what happened? She asks, finally stepping back to grab some bandages. The younger biker shrugs. Got into it with some guys at a bar. Monica snorts. I see stupidity runs in the family. The leader chuckles while the younger one glares. You always this rude to your patients? Only the ones who show up acting like tough guys when they should have gone to urgent care hours ago, she retorts, taping a bandage over his brow. He huffs again, but there's less bite this time, more embarrassment. Monica finishes up, stripping off her gloves and tossing them in the trash. Nothing's broken, but you're gonna be sore for a while. Ice the bruises, take some ibuprofen, and for the love of God, try not to get into another fight this week. The younger biker mutters, yeah, thanks. Monica turns to the leader, who's been watching the whole time, arms still crossed. So is this the part where you tell me I earned your respect? And we ride off into the sunset. He smirks, shaking his head. Don't get ahead of yourself. But yeah, I guess I can admit when I was wrong. Monica gives a mock gasp. Wow, her breakthrough. He chuckles, running a hand through his hair. Before looking at her more seriously, you know, most people don't stand up to us, not like you did back at the diner. Most people shouldn't have to, she replies simply. He nods like he gets it, like maybe for the first time in a long time he's thinking about the way he's lived differently. Finally, he sighs, jerking his thumb toward his brother. We're gonna get out of here, thanks for this. Monica nods, but before they go, she adds one last thing. Don't show up at my apartment again, unless you want to test out how good I am at setting broken bones too. The leader chuckles. Yeah, I think we're good. With that, they leave, stepping out into the hallway, disappearing down the corridor. Monica watches them go, then shakes her head with a small amused smile before turning back to work. Just another day.